Hi there, Rowan Cox here, and welcome to this important video on how to master grammar, right? So I know most people have been learning English for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or more, and I still get questions all the time after 20 years of teaching English. People still ask me, how do I learn grammar? How do I improve grammar? What's the best way to learn grammar? Grammar is too confusing. What do I do? And so on. So this video is for you if you find that grammar is a bit confusing or difficult, right? So because you've been learning English for that long and you still have grammar problems, there is a problem there. And the problem, I would say, is don't focus on grammar. Sounds funny, sounds strange, right? But I will explain why I say this and reasons and ways to improve it. Okay, so let me give you an example of this. Let's compare learning English or grammar to learning how to drive a car. Now, most people in the world have learned how to drive a car or ride a motorbike or a push bike. So most people can ride a bike or drive a car. Let's use drive a car in this example, okay? So how long does it take for the average person to learn how to drive a car? From day one, where they get in the car and they say, okay, what do I do? What are these pedals? What do I do first, right? Day one, no knowledge or experience, all the way up to getting their driver's license, where they are confident and competent, able enough to drive a car on their own. How long does that take? Usually people say 3 or 4 months, maybe 5. Let's say 6 months, right? Let's even blow it right out and say that we're really bad at this and say, let's say it takes 1 year, okay? So let's say it takes 1 year to learn how to drive a car from beginner to on your own. No problem, right? Now, flip it around a little. So we've said, okay, we learn grammar and people have been learning grammar at school for 5 or 6 years or on the internet or courses or things. And usually the focus is grammar because that's kind of the structure of a language, right? But after learning English for 5 or 6 years at school plus extra online or courses or wherever, you've been learning English or grammar for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. And it's still confusing. Switching it back, imagine if you've been learning how to drive a car for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or 20 years and you still find it confusing or difficult. Sounds crazy, right? Like, that's ridiculous. So what do we do? Well, if it takes you more than 1 year to learn something, or it takes you 5 years to learn something and you still don't understand, give up. That system is not working. We have to try something new, right? So the reason is we can learn to drive a car within a year, just like we learn how to walk or brush our teeth or cook or any of these things, because they are skills. We as people can learn skills. Whereas grammar is a complex system. There are many rules, but then there are many exceptions to the rules and changes to the rules, and it makes us go crazy when we try to understand it properly, right? So forget that. So then, well, what do you do? And the first step would be to copy native speakers. If you can, communicate with native speakers. It might be making friends online, getting a language exchange partner, or a teacher that you pay to learn from, right? Doesn't matter how you do it, so long as you can communicate with a native speaker and copy them. If you cannot, just watch videos and copy them. Movies, right? And take sentences from them. I'll get back to that soon. But for example, the more you copy natives, the more you can sound like native speakers. So an example, a few years ago, I started learning Indonesian language. And as I was chatting with my teacher, I noticed they would say something. Now, thank you in Indonesian is terima kasih. Thank you, terima kasih. Okay, I learned that. But then sometimes I noticed the teacher would say makasih. I thought, makasih? Where's the terima? And I realized, they just shorten it. Just like English people shorten thank you to thanks. Makes sense. So I started using makasih. So I was sounding more like a native Indonesian speaker rather than a student, right? So the more you pay attention to native English speakers, you can copy their phrases or sentences and sound like them, sound more like a native than a student. So as you copy native speakers, you will start to get a feeling for words or sentences or phrases, how to do it, right? And that is one of my points. Rather than trying to learn and understand the complex system of grammar, word by word or something like this, use and start to learn sentences to go by feeling. And we have all had this in our native language. My native language is English. I don't know what yours is. Maybe Chinese, Japanese, French, German. I don't know. But whatever your native language is, sometimes you've heard a sentence and you go, oh, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't seem right. Doesn't feel right, right? Doesn't seem right. You're going by feeling rather than analyzing the sentence. You go, oh, no, it should be said this way, right? So you hear a sentence that's not quite right and you go by feeling. It doesn't feel right. Doesn't seem right. Oh, no, it needs to be this. And you didn't change it by thinking grammatically, you changed it by feeling, okay? So then my next point is, as we're learning in bigger chunks rather than individual words and grammar, the way I've been teaching English for about 20 years, and I learn I learn different languages, Indonesian, I've learned some Chinese this way, Vietnamese this way, is by templates. Now, what I mean by a template is you can take a correct grammatically correct sentence, just take it, use it, and just change one or two words, and you can make hundreds, if not thousands, of new words using that template, which is technically grammatically correct without thinking any grammar. So a very basic example is, what did you do? What did you do? You can change you, the person. What did you do? What did he do? What did she do? What did we do? Right? You can change the action. What did you do? What did he learn? What did she play? What did they cook? What did we eat? You can even change the tense. Did. What did you do? What will you do? Right? So you can play around with one sentence to make many sentences without even thinking about grammar. You don't need it in that sense. There are some ways learning grammar will help and will improve you. Absolutely. I'm not saying you don't need grammar. That's what language is, grammar. I'm talking about thinking about grammar and trying to understand it. That's not going to work, right? Now, 3 big areas which are problems for nearly every student are small words, what I call small words, which are prepositions and articles, in, on, at, the, and so on. Now, most languages, maybe every language, has small words, but from my understanding, teaching different people from different countries, English has more than any other language, and that's why you find them confusing. You'll know some are okay, but some of them are just so confusing. Is it an on or an at or an in? I don't know, right? So that's very confusing. Second one is tenses, right? You know, they have been doing, have done. Which one do you use? All these sorts of things, right? Again, English has a lot of different tenses. There's the future, present, and past, but there's different elements of past, right? I have done, I have been doing. What is that? Right? So that's very confusing also. The third one is, and this is mainly for languages or people from languages where they don't really have singular and plural, usually Asian languages, where you might say one question, two questions, and you forget the S, right? So there are three main areas that nearly every student has difficulty with English. So there's three more areas to focus on. Now going back to the native speakers and copying them, another perfect example is when I was in Bali in 2004. It was my first time to Bali, 2004. Bali is very close to Australia, so their number one tourist is Australians. And, you know, it's a poorer country, Indonesia, the schooling, the education isn't, you know, that high and so on. But when I went there, I was walking down the street and one time I heard Australian slang. So Australian slang for hello, how are you is g'day mate, right? Hello or how are you? G'day mate. And I was walking down the street and I heard this, g'day mate. I thought, who's that? Like maybe a friend of mine? I turned around and there were just a couple of Indonesian people there. I thought, who said that? I said, who said that? How are you, mate? Where you from, mate? Melbourne? I thought, what? Are you Australian but you look Balinese or what's going on? And I realized he didn't learn g'day mate, where are you from mate, and all these things from school. He didn't learn it from grammar books. He just paid attention and copied native speakers. All of the tourists that came, he would be listening and copying them until he sounded exactly like them. He didn't think any grammar rules, right? So that's my point about copying natives. The more you copy native English speakers, the more you will sound like a native English speaker rather than a student. And sometimes a student sounds more like a robot, especially at the start, because you have all learned, hello, how are you? Equals, fine, thank you, and you. Hello, how are you? Fine, thank you, and you. It sounds like a robot answering because it's always the same. In fact, even when you are not fine, maybe you're sick or not feeling great, if someone says, how are you? You will still say, fine, thank you, and you, because that's your automatic response. That's what you have been learned or taught. That's what you've been taught. That's what you learned. In school, all of these years, every textbook, hello, how are you? Equals, fine, thank you, and you. There's no other answer, right? So that's the point. Keep copying natives so you can take sentences from them and sound more like them rather than a textbook. So it's almost finished now. There's only one big point, and I've already been talking about it. Most people spend about 95% of the time learning English, learning new words. You know, you go on the internet, everything's free. The easy stuff is free, right? More words, more sentences, more idioms. You know, here, learn. And most people learn 95% of the time and practice 5% of the time. It should be the opposite. You don't need to learn much. Like I said, learn a template and just practice it all day. You've just learned 100 sentences in one day. If you keep learning, you can learn 100 sentences, but the next day you will remember one. It's a waste of time, right? So what is better than learning? Practicing. Practice should be 95% of the time, learning just 5%. And of course, I am a teacher. I've been teaching English online for 20 years. So I am offering trial lessons at the moment for a limited time. If you're interested to take a trial online lesson to practice English more, click the link in the description, send me a private message, and we can set you up with a trial lesson. And then if you like that, we can become student teacher for longer term. But that is basically it for this lesson, right? Don't focus on grammar. Copy native speakers. Focus in templates and sentences and blocks. Focus on bigger pieces, not smaller pieces. Don't analyze sentences. And another thing is translating, right? I might ask you a question, you'll hear the answer, you'll hear the question, you'll translate it into your native language. What's the answer? Then you translate it back into English, then you reply in English. By doing blocks of sentences and templates, you will not have to worry or rely on translation or analyzing grammar and all these things that are stopping you from speaking fluently, right? The more your brain has to work, the slower it will be to come out. That's why it's slowing your fluency down. By doing templates, it will speed things up. Your brain doesn't have to think or translate or do all this work as much. So that's it for this lesson. If you benefit from this lesson, if you like this lesson, if you learned anything, share it with your friends, share it with others. I made a video like this similar. It got over 200,000 views on YouTube. So it is useful for many people. Like this, comment, tell me, what did you learn or like the most from this video? I'd love to hear your answer. I want to help people, right? So like this channel, like this video, comment, share it, whatever you like to do. And I'll see you in a next video.